such pretty lies. Don't believe her, for when you look into her eyes, love just isn't there. Brother, beware. Take care, my brother, take care. For the female of the species is deadlier than the male. The smile that made a dream begin clouds your vision. It's just the shadow of a dream that you're living in. She never cared. Beware, my brother, beware. For the female of the species is deadlier than the male. By walking streets you've never known, when the night comes, sitting in places that you go, hoping she'll be there. Brother, beware. Take care, my brother, take care. For the female of the species is deadlier than the male.
Good evening, everyone. That's a clip from one of the movies we'll be talking about tonight, Deadlier Than the Male. And Scott Walker ought to know, because he's singing the theme song. My name is Bob Whiteford, and across the aisle from me, my good friend, the undisputed czar of film on the Central Coast. You know I'm talking about Jim Dee. And Jimmy, here we go. Our special Take 4. Jim and I have each picked 4 films, and we're going to talk about them. I'm going to start off with my first pick, which is Deadlier Than the Male.
Well, before we continue, Bob, I think it's important to tell our listeners here on Take 2 that there's no ground rules here. We've done a show called Tape 4 a couple of other times here on the program. These aren't necessarily on our top 10 or on our top 100. But they could be. We're also able to maybe sneak in a foreign language film because we don't do that much on this program. We like to say, play clips from movies, and we have unfortunately gone a little shy on some of the foreign language films. We're talking about high art and low art, and Bob and I have just come into the screening room here and sharing 4 movies that have no connection whatsoever, just 4 movies that we really like, we like to turn you on to, and that's why we call it Take 4.
Well, Jimmy, how many times have people said, what's your favorite movies? I can't answer it.
No.
You can't answer it. But tonight, we'll take a stab at it. And leading off, 1967's Deadlier Than the Male. I mean, you go back to the 60s, folks, of course, the spy movie phenomenon. So some producer somewhere decided maybe resurrect Bulldog Drummond, the kind of the suave detective from the 30s, and turn him into perhaps like a 1960s swinging spy. The only attempt was this one film, and it's successful, at least in my eyes. Richard Johnson, a terrific actor from those days, British actor. He was in Robert Wise's The Haunting, and also in the epic Khartoum with Charlton Heston and Sir Laurence Olivier. Here, he's suave, which means he's well-tailored, he drives a very nice, expensive British car, and he's up against a bevy of female assassins played to just the perfect pitch by 2 of my all-time 1960s hot chicks du jour, femme fatales. I'm talking Elke Summer and Sylvia Cosina. Of course, Mr. Big for them is played by the wonderful Nigel Green. This film has a lot of great elements to it. It's shot in London, southern France, the Mediterranean. It's got all the elements of those classic 60s spy thrillers, whereas it's completely over the top, utterly ridiculous, and yet at the same time you're having a lot of fun. It's got a great soundtrack. Scott Walker, aforementioned, singing the opening theme. I've gone back to this film many times over the years, Jimmy, including about a week ago, and it always works for me. I don't know how many times I've seen it, from probably when I was very young. I don't know, dozens. And it's like an old friend. It always delivers. And right now, we'd like to play a clip for you from the movie Deadlier Than the Male. I'll set it up for you. Elkie Summers, an assassin. And let me tell you, she looks good. When my time comes, I hope it's a Nordic blonde in a white bikini who puts the lights out for me, if that's the last thing I'm going to see on this mortal coil. But she's part of a group of criminals taking over all the oil companies in the Middle East back in 1967. And she uses her feminine wiles to slay, literally and figuratively, a oil company executive who is in her way. Dig the soundtrack, because the music to this really kind of works as well. Roll 'em, Andy. Deadlier Than the Male.
Good evening, sir.
Welcome home and good evening, Mr. Bridgenorth.
How did you get in? Who gave you that? What you want? Think you can get round me, eh?
Can't I?
No.
How very disappointing. And I thought I'd found a real man in you, Mr. Bridgenorth.
Wait a minute. There's no need to be hasty. You could always try persuading me.
Do you think I could succeed?
Try. Nails are sharp.
Penelope. Mr. Bridgenorth?
Could have been very nice, Mr. Bridgeforth, but now you're paralyzed. You can see and you can hear and you can feel, but you can't move and you can't talk.
Oh, poor Mr. Bridgenorth. You see, it is a nasty old drug she carries in her ring. It only lasts just a few minutes and doesn't leave any traces at all. Isn't that clever? The police will think you've committed suicide.
Penelope, take his feet.
you can imagine poor Mr. Bridgenaw is about to be airmailed over the side of his penthouse apartment by Elkie Summer and Sylvia Cosina. And as Jackie Gleason used to say, what a way to go.
So Bob's first film on Take 4 tonight is Deadlier Than the Mail. I think the soundtrack really told it all on that one.
It does. I can't quite remember who did the music to this, but it's wonderful. And it's definitely worth a look if you're a fan of that genre. And I know any red-blooded male certainly is. And I think these days, I think the gals would dig it too, for the camp, if nothing else. Deadlier Than the Mail, a total winner.
Well, my first of 4 tonight on Take 4, on Take 2 tonight on Public Radio is, I think, a must-see for those of you who live in Santa Barbara, but I'll also say that this is a great film no matter where you live. I'm talking about from 1981, the film Cutter's Way with Jeff Bridges and John Hurd. You know, Bob, I revisited this film, and boy, it just holds up so well. It's almost... as I'll even compare this to Chinatown and the fact that the film has a film noir feel about it, rather desperate characters. There's a kind of a sleazy murder in this film, but even though you're seeing sun-drenched Santa Barbara, all the elements seem to be like a film noir. And this is about two characters, essentially. Jeff Bridges is Richard Bone, and the great John Hurd is Alex Cutter. Now, I do want to make a mention about John Hurd, and I want to specify that there's some confusion with this name. We have William Hurt, we have John Hurt, but this is John Hurd, H-E-R-D, who was also in the wonderful Chilly Scenes of Winter. After his early career here in the late 70s and 80s, he went on to be like more of a character actor. I think he did a stint in The Sopranos. He's in the Home Alone movies as the father. So some of this really interesting stuff he did in his early career, you know, it just didn't follow through. I love the guy. It's too bad that he didn't make more movies like Cutter's Way. Also, the specifics about Cutter's Way does take place during La Fiesta in Santa Barbara, which gives it a real nice local feel. But there's also a lot more going on in this film. The fact that Cutter is a Vietnam vet. He's lost an eye, part of his arm, and part of his leg. He is the one who is ready to go after the establishment and really, you know, maybe also foment some conspiracy theories and the like. His close friend Jeff Bridges, Richard Bone, is the guy who doesn't want to get involved. He just kind of wants to sit back, and if there's something important, he's ready to just go sit on the beach or be with a woman or something like that. So it's these two sort of polar opposites, but they kind of depend on each other. Folks, if you haven't seen Cutter's Way, it goes back, about 28 years, but it is a fantastic film. I went back to it, checked it out, and it really holds up. Here's a scene from Cutter's Way. To set this up, Jeff Bridges, early on in the film, witnesses a murdered girl being dumped into a trash can and thinks he sees the man responsible, maybe in a large Cadillac. Shortly after that, at the Santa Barbara La Fiesta parade, he sees someone who he feels is the murderer. Now, afterwards, they're sitting around. This is Jeff Bridges and John Hurd. They've just sort of spotted this guy in the parade. Jeff Bridges says, well, that might be the guy. And John Hurd really presses him on it. This is Jeff Bridges, John Hurd, in Cutter's Way.
Cord was busy last night.
What do you mean Cord was busy?
His car was burned at the marina.
What was he doing at the marina?
Paper says he was at the oil conference at the El Encanto. Decided to go for a drive. He says he does it all the time.
That's where I saw him.
What?
I saw him at the El Encanto. I was there last night. I saw him at the parade, and I made the connection.
Pretty good. Oh, we cleared that up. What time did you say you left the El Encanto?
Come on.
I've been doing this all night long with professionals, Alex.
All right, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Let's talk about your leg or something. Get your hands out of the guacamole, too.
Can I ask one more question before we talk about my leg? What time did you leave the El Encanto?
A little after 12.
No kidding. That's funny because it says here in the paper this guy was driving around midnight, went down to the yacht club or something to look at his boat, and kaplooey, somebody just happened to blow up his car. What size car did you say you saw?
Wait a minute. I didn't say anything about blowing the car up. The car was burned. This is a fiesta, you know. There's bars trashed all the time. Cars are blown up all the time.
Girls get killed all the time. What kind of car did you say you saw?
Big car.
Like a Cadillac, maybe?
I don't know.
Okay, I'm sorry, man. You know, you're right as rain as usual. The odds against old J.J. Cord being a trash can killer are absolutely out of the question. Except for one thing, Rich. Two things, in fact. First of all, you said it's him. Now, did I get that quote right? Not similar, sort of, kind of looks like him a little bit. You said it's him. And second, big number two, Rich. His car takes it in the shorts within 90 minutes of when the girl's body is found. And you don't find that even remotely intriguing?
Yeah, you got one big problem.
What's that?
Your imagination.
This is facts, Rich. I mean, I haven't even begun to let my imagination loose on this one.
It's the voice of John Hurd, Jeff Bridges, in one of my favorite films, Cutter's Way from 1981. It takes place in Santa Barbara. And when Jeff Bridges in that clip was talking about he's been, questioned a lot, he was actually a suspect in this, the murder that is unsolved, at least at this point in the film. Also, it's kind of interesting that John Hurd is rebelling against this oil executive who, see the movie. It's fabulous. Cutter's Way. It kind of reinvents film noir. And if you haven't seen this film, I highly recommend it. So tonight on Take 4, my number one movie is Cutter's Way. Bob?
Well, that's interesting, Jimmy. Our first films take on oil executives in different ways, of course. But my second film from my Take 4, here on Take 2, is also from 1981. And this is an interesting little oddity that I found recently. It's called Road Games, and it's directed by an Australian named Richard Franklin. And this is, without a doubt, one of the best Hitchcock-influenced homages I've seen. The film takes place in the lonely Australian outback. It features Stacy Keach as a truck driver and Jamie Lee Curtis, fresh off of Halloween and The Fog. Her career really on the ascension at this point as a hitchhiker. And on this lonely stretch of road is a van that is driven by a person who may be a serial killer of women, but they don't know. In fact, we don't know for sure. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. And Richard Franklin, as it turned out, was a USC film student who also became a major Hitchcock archivist, as it turned out. And I guess when he returned to his native Australia in the late 70s, early 80s, at the beginning of the renaissance of Australian film, at least in this country, and he came out with this gem. And this is a film I saw for the first time late at night on Cinemax because I couldn't sleep. And there it was. And I was riveted for 2 hours. It's one of those things why I love movies. You go into a movie going, okay, well, I have nothing. I have only time to invest, and the movie delivers so much more. Stacy Keach and Jamie Lee Curtis are terrific in this film. Richard Franklin's direction is superb. The Outback setting for a Hitchcockian thriller is absolutely perfect. This is just one of these wonderful surprises that keeps me loving movies. And the fact that I actually found this on DVD from Anchor Bay, no less, which meant it was a beautiful quality print of this, was even more fun. Here's a clip from Road Games, and I'll set up the scene for you. Stacy Keach is a truck driver. He's driving a refrigerated truck filled with slaughtered pigs to a market. And he pulls over to pick up a young female hitchhiker played by Jamie Lee Curtis. The reason why he's not really, I mean, he's been checking her out. Come on, it's Stacy Keach, for crying out loud. But I think part of it is, more than anything, he's lonely. It's a lonely stretch of road, and you can only talk to yourself so much, or to his pet dingo so much. Plus, I think at this point, he's kind of suspicious that maybe there's something wrong on the road, and he feels a sense that he should protect this young hitchhiker who he's seen several times and not picked up. And the funny thing is, when he picks her up, she also shares with him that she suspects something's amiss on the road. This is an interesting clip from Road Games.
Aren't you kind of young to be hitchhiking out here all by yourself?
Aren't you kind of old to be picking me up?
It's not a pickup. It's just a lift. I don't usually pick up hitchhikers.
What makes me the exception?
I don't know. I guess I just kind of felt sorry for you.
I didn't know there were any chivalrous truck drivers. Oh, look up in your dingo.
You didn't by any chance happen to see a guy in a green van?
Yeah. Wonder why he didn't pick me up.
You sound a little disappointed that he didn't. Hey, how old are you anyway, Hitch?
Old enough. How old are you?
Old enough to be your father?
My father's 67.
Oh.
Well, maybe he makes love to him first.
Hitch, does your 67-year-old father know you accept rides from truck drivers?
My name isn't Hitch.
Does your mother know you're gone?
She's dead. My father lives with a whore.
So you ran away?
No, I walked away.
Well, Hitch, don't you think it might be a good idea to call him and let him know that you're all right?
God, maybe that's how he gets his rocks off.
Your father?
No, you're Mr. Smith or Jones. You know, the Boston Strangler was on a sex trip. God, maybe make love to him afterwards.
Oh, come on.
Well, why do you think he does it?
I don't know. I mean, I really don't know that he does. Let's get carried away about this.
Are you kidding? It's the most fun I've had all afternoon.
Okay.
See, there you have it, Jimmy. Two interesting characters, one lonely stretch of road, and maybe a psychotic serial killer of women who's following along with them every step of the way. Because the road is so barren and, it's out in the middle of nowhere. Even if they're 10 miles apart, they're still going in the same direction. And sometimes they overtake the van, sometimes the van overtakes them, but they're all going in the same direction. And the film has an exciting conclusion at the end because literally it ends up right at the other end of the continent. And, Jim, when I saw this movie, it reminded me of, it's a great companion to all the great Australian films of that time. I mean, a few years before that was Don's Party.
Don's Party is great.
Oh, it's a wonderful... I could have done that very easily. Picnic at Hanging Rock, The Last Wave, Chant of Jimmy Blacksmith, Breaker Morant. You get the drift. I think part of the problem with this film, why people didn't see it, was in Australia, they were furious. The people there were furious that Americans were being cast in their films. They really felt that Australian actors could do this so much better. And poor Jamie Lee Curtis took a lot of abuse when she made this movie. And as Richard Franklin was to say, that was right at the end of the time when films made in Australia and in Europe a lot of times had to have American actors and actresses for distribution. And he doesn't regret casting Stacy Keach or Jamie Lee Curtis because they're really good in this. This is some of the best stuff they've ever done in their career. And Jamie Lee Curtis unjustly was bagged on because she was American. Road Games, worth a look, folks. Especially if you dig Hitchcock, you're going to love this.
Well, we're talking Take 4 and Take 2 tonight in my next film, number 2 on my list. I'm delighted to talk about what one critic called the best film of 2006. It was made in 1969. It's a film called Army of Shadows from the great, great French director who may not be a household name here in the States, like a Jean Renoir or a Francois Truffaut, but it's Jean-Pierre Melville who made a lot of great films. This one he made in 1969 called Army of Shadows. And hats off to Rialto Pictures, also the Criterion Collection folks who brought this film to the States for the first time since its release in 1969. And Bob, I got to tell you, I think you and I saw this film when it was finally released in this country. It's all about the French resistance during World War II. And I'm not sure what it is about this film, but man, it grabs you by the nape of the neck at the beginning, and it is fantastic. I love this film. I've seen it a number of times since the re-release, and it's a great World War II film. I'm going to play a clip from the film, which includes a commentary. See, the commentary is in English. I'd love to do more foreign language films on this show, but, we would require our listeners to speak all the languages of the world. We can't do that. So here is a description of part of the film Army of Shadows. The commentary is by film historian Jeanette Vincent-Dieu, and she's talking about Army of Shadows.
As we cut away from the claustrophobia of the barracks to the arrival of a mysterious car, two things need to be noted. First, stylistically, the scene initiates one of the running themes of the film, namely that Melville shot this war film in many ways like a gangster movie. This was not entirely surprising. L'Armée des Ombres was Melville's 11th film out of a career that numbered 13, and which was structured by the dual tracks of war films and gangster films. L'Armée des Ombres, which belongs to his late, mature period, was made between his two most famous gangster movies, Le Samouraï in 1967 and Le Cercle Rouge in 1969, and it bears many similarities with these two films, especially the latter. The French critic Jacques Doniol-Valcroze accurately said of L'Armée des Ombres that this resistance epic was, in the end, a sublime thriller. Although Melville, who liked to be contrary, thought such readings absolutely idiotic, the connections between L'Armée des Ombres and his gangster films are evident.
That is the voice of film historian Jeanette Vincent-Dieu, and she's talking about the great Jean-Pierre Melville film called Army of Shadows, finally released in this country in 2006. It was made in 1969. And what's great about this film, Bob, is like you and I both have experienced this film. As she says, this is a World War II movie about the French resistance, but it plays like a gangster movie. It's an incredible thriller. It does have sort of a lot of film noir elements. It's dark. Just sort of the different approaches that the members of the French resistance have towards each other, towards the Germans, and of course this whole occupation itself is fascinating. And I don't know how Melville really did it. I was locked into these characters. They don't have a whole lot of background, but you just, I don't know, maybe it's the acting, the directing, the combination, but I was with these characters throughout this entire film, and it's a must-see in my opinion. So from 1969, finally released in this country in 2006, the great Jean-Pierre Melville's Army of Shadows. You're listening to Take Two on Public Radio, KCBX and KCBX HD1 San Luis Obispo, KSBX Santa Barbara, and we are streaming worldwide at kcbx.org. We're back with our final four on Take Two in just a moment.
You're listening to Take Two on Public Radio, KCBX San Luis Obispo, KSBX Santa Barbara, streaming at kcbx.org. And you can write to us at movies@kcbx.org.
Funds are provided in part by Impulse Internet Services, providing high-speed T1, DSL, and wireless internet access to Central Coast businesses and homes since 1995 at 781-6301. We're back on Take Two, the movie program. My name is Jim Dee, and I'm here with my very good friend, Bob Whiteford. The rules for tonight, it's simply called Take Four. We've randomly picked four movies that each of us like a lot. It's not particularly maybe a favorite, but maybe so. Maybe it's one that would be in our top 10, maybe in our top 100, maybe not there. But we've just randomly picked four movies each. We're sharing them with you tonight, and essentially we're all over the map. And it's interesting, Bob, because we did this separate from each other. My last film, Army of Shadows, from France, and now we segue into your third film selection for tonight, also from a French director.
That's right, Jimmy, and I'm talking about Francois Truffaut's only English language film, which was, of course, the science fiction adaptation of the Ray Bradbury story Fahrenheit 451. And this is an Anglo-American production starring Oscar Werner as Montag and Julie Christie in a dual role, Cyril Cusack as what could only be described as the head of the firehouse, also the voice of the fascist state. And Fahrenheit 451 was a film that was not well received critically when it was released in 1966. But I find, Jimmy, that it's aged well. And frankly, even from the time I first saw this film as a youngster, there was something about it that grabbed me. And I think what it is that it's a totalitarian state with a velvet touch. Books are banned. Fahrenheit 451 is the temperature at which paper burns. And firemen now don't go around putting out fires. They go around collecting books and burning them.
They start fires.
Exactly. And it's funny, there's a scene in the film where a young child goes to ask their parent, I heard firemen used to put out fires, and his mother silences him because such talk is dangerous. But what's interesting, Jimmy, Truffaut is such a great filmmaker. What we're really looking at here outside of the realm of science fiction is the stifling and negative of the passive negativism of living under a totalitarian regime. Everyone has huge plasma screen televisions, but yet imagination and discussion and thought is pretty much suppressed. And, if you feel anything, you just take a pill and numb yourself. And there's an interesting scene on a monorail where Oscar Werner's character is just looking at the people around him, and he sees people touching themselves. And what was interesting was I explored the making of this film, and Truffaut and Bradbury came up with this idea that people are just so, what's the word they use? They're kind of lost. There's no ambition, there's no dreams, there's no nothing. So they find they must have like these strange little sensations, like touching themselves just to make their skin dimple. So they feel something in a society where they're not allowed to feel anything. I mean, this is intellectual oppression, and even in your everyday person, if you take away their dreams and things to think about or to talk about, they're not left with much. You know, you can only do so much banal talk and, pill popping and TV watching and, and sexual encounters. You need other things to, if nothing else, make them more interesting. This film, I would say, will stand out in the Truffaut catalog of films. It's probably not near the top, but it does offer a wonderful Bernard Herrmann score. Around this time, Bernard Herrmann was working with Truffaut quite a bit on Fahrenheit 451 and The Bride Who Wore Black with Jean Moreau, the always wonderful Jean Moreau. And I think the thing that's really interesting here is Julie Christie is marvelous as two polar opposite characters. She played both characters, oddly enough, only to keep the budget down. And she does a wonderful job. She's beautiful, sexy, and completely stifled intellectually as Montag's wife. And she is also this school teacher who is full of ideas and full of life because she reads books. And she's part of, like in Army of Shadows, the resistance. You resist the society by reading books. And there's a wonderful scene of Oscar Werner reading David Copperfield to the light given off from his plasma television with no channel on it. It's on, but the stations are off. So it just emits a light, and he reads to it. So he's using the tool of the totalitarian state to illuminate his room so he can read, which is, of course, against the rules. Here's an interesting scene from Fahrenheit 451, and this gives you a sense of just the stifling effects of living under this all-knowing, all-smiling, all-intellect stifling totalitarian state. Cyril Cusack is his commander at the firehouse. There's talk of a promotion.
Like gymnastics, Montag?
Yes, sir.
And what about hockey? Do you like hockey?
Yes, I do, sir.
And golf?
Golf, very much, sir.
And football?
Wonderful, sir.
Billiards? Basketball?
Oh, dear. All very fine sports, sir.
Then increase the dosage. More sports for everyone, Strengthen the group spirit. Organize the fun. Just keep them busy and you keep them happy.
See, there you have it. Just keep them busy and you keep them happy. It's all about keeping people happy, quote unquote, and not thinking. Oscar Werner, a wonderful actor. This is right around the time he was hitting it big with Ship of Fools. Apparently very difficult to work with, but aren't always the good ones. Fahrenheit 451 from 1966, my third pick on the Take 4 installment of Take 2. Back to you, Jimmy.
Okay, my third pick, we're talking about high art on this program. We're talking about, when I talk Army of Shadows, we're talking about Nazis and the French Resistance. Well, my next film, we go to the low end here. I'm going back to 1984. Here's a film with Germans and the French Resistance, but a whole lot more. A very young Val Kilmer who does his Elvis impression even better than I would say Nicolas Cage or Kurt Russell. We're talking about, from the folks who gave you Airplane, the film Top Secret. And Bob, I have to say that with the success of the Airplane movies, I was surprised that this film didn't reach a bigger audience, because this one kind of came in under the radar, wasn't as popular as those films. But this thing is hilarious for the most part. I think what you have to realize that in Top Secret, much like Airplane, every scene, the director, the writers want to inject something that is off-kilter, that is a pun, visual joke, something. Sometimes they hit it, sometimes they don't. But just the fact that you're sitting there watching this movie and perhaps every 5 to 15 seconds you're going to see a gag, it's a hoot, it's fun. Fun to see Val Kilmer doing his, rock and roll idol impersonation. I mean, he's actually very good in this when he sings the songs. The musical numbers in this film are great. But again, we're talking about non-stop gags, and I'm sure that at least every fifth or sixth one will crack you up. Here is a scene from Top Secret from 1984, and the whole gist of the film is Nazi Germans are, Nazis, let's just call them, are trying to take over Germany once again. And to do so, they need a diversionary tactic. They're going to put on this cultural fair or something and invite artists from around the world, and they're going to put on this cultural thing as they take over Germany and reclaim it as their own. Now, listen to this conversation from Germans plotting this. This is from the wild and crazy Top Secret.
Well done, von Horst. By Sunday, the entire NATO submarine fleet will be here on their maneuvers and completely vulnerable. Am I your Kumpler? What is the progress with our diversionary plan?
The schedule for the cultural festival is now complete, Herr General. And you should be pleased to note that at your personal request, the Soviets have agreed to send their celebrated tenor, Vladimir Biletnikov.
Well done, Herr Mayer. Then everything has gone according to the plan.
Well, not exactly, mein General. The American, Leonard Bernstein, unfortunately has had to cancel. But they are sending another performer in his place. In fact, we have just received this copy of his most recent record album. His name is Nick Rivers.
I'm sure he will be quite adequate. As long as the attention of the world is firmly fixed on our cultural festival, no one will know what is about to happen. And once again, Germany will become united under one rule, ours. After Sunday, there will be no one to stop us.
And after that, they put on the Nick Rivers album, and he is a rock and roller, and they've never heard that in Germany, at least at this time. Folks, this is a very silly, very funny, hit and miss movie, but if you're in for a good laugh and at least every few minutes, check out from the creators of Airplane, the film Top Secret from 1984. Bob?
Well, here's my fourth pick on Take 4 on Take 2. Before I begin, I just want to say happy birthday to Dominique. I want to say hello to Professor Flubber out in Los Angeles, California, and a big hello to Ralphie J. McCabe in Monticello, New York. All three are listening to this show via the internet, and that's an audience I just got to say hi to.
Hello.
Hello. Now, getting on to my final pick, Jimmy. We talked during the David Lean show about Robert Mitchum in Ryan's Daughter, probably one of his better roles in his later career. Even by Mitch's own admission, his later career, he wasn't too pleased with a lot of the stuff he did. In fact, he called them guerrilla pictures. Basically, I guess he did them for the money or just to have something to do. But 1973's Friends of Eddie Coyle, I would say, is probably not one of them. I would think this is one of the better things he's done, along with Ryan's Daughter and Paul Schrader's The Yakuza, in his latter career, not to mention Winds of War, etc., War and Remembrance. In this film, Mitchum plays a lower... kind of a lower Boston gangster who's struggling to get out of the game. He's well on the bad side of 50. He's been in and out of jail. He's not moving up in the organization, and he's feeling pressure from the boss up top, played by Peter Boyle, and he's feeling the heat from the cops, played by Richard Jordan, who've got him over a barrel and literally want to turn him into an informant. Mitch is looking for the one last score to get himself out of the game, get himself to Florida with him and his wife, and just live out the rest of his life. Mitchum is so good in this movie, Jimmy. He's worldly, he's weary, and he's desperate. And he's desperate in only a way that Mitchum can be. He's not hysterical. His desperation is it's a quiet desperation. And under the direction of Peter Yates, this film, which has a terrific cast, Alex Rocco, Stephen Keats, I mentioned Richard Jordan and Peter Boyle, as well as Mitchum. This is just it's a fascinating crime film, kind of the psychology of the criminal, and not the big timers. These are like the petty criminals that have been out in the game probably too long. In this scene coming up, Mitchum is meeting with a low-end gun runner, part-time gun runner, part-time dope pusher, played by Stephen Keats, and you get a quiet sense of Mitch's quiet desperation in this scene when he's trying to get this guy to do what he needs to do so he doesn't get clipped by the big guys. Roll 'em, Andy.
Barry, check out 7.
Hey, you owe me 10 more guns. I need them fast. When do I get them?
I don't know. Look, I got you the first batch when I said, and I was ahead on the dozen. You know, these things take time.
Time is what I haven't got. I'm getting pressure. I gotta see the man tomorrow night. I need those guns.
I can't get them for you by tomorrow night.
Son of a bitch, I gotta have that stuff fast. I got a long ride to make tomorrow night, and I need the stuff with me when I make it.
No way, no day, no can do. Look, I told you, I get quality. These things take time.
Tomorrow night.
You aren't buying a loaf of bread, you know. I got a thing set up that works pretty good. Dependable stuff that's not going to get anybody in trouble. I'm not going to screw it up just because your people got hot drawers. You'll have to tell them that.
You tell them.
Look, the stuff will come. What's the big emergency?
Look, one of the first things I learned is never to ask a man why he's in a hurry. All you got to know is I told a man that he could depend on me because you told me I could depend on you. Now, one of us is going to have a big, fat problem. Another thing I learned, if anybody's going to have a problem...
Mitch is about to really lay it on the line with this guy. Friends of Eddie Coyle, it's gritty, and it's gritty in the way, Jimmy, it's bad neon lighting, it's ceilings with 40 to 50 years of old cigarette smoke, tar on it. It's a hard world that doesn't quite exist anymore. And it's a film that unjustly was not seen for many years and is now, thanks to the people on at Criterion and Paramount, available to film lovers anywhere. I highly recommend The Friends of Eddie Coyle from 1973.
And we will go over all the films we've been talking about tonight. In fact, Bob, I want to make sure we get all these in, but interesting the connections that you made with David Lean on the last film. And I forgot to mention on Top Secret, Omar Sharif is a character. The great Peter Cushing is in there with a cameo, as well as Michael Goff. Wonderful. Yeah. And the other connection to Top Secret, silly as it may sound, Maurice Jarre doing the music, who also did the Lawrence of Arabia and all those other. We did our Maurice Jarre show a few weeks back. Okay, well, I guess I got rid of the final stuff on Top Secret. I'm going to go to my final movie on our Take 4 program tonight on Take 2. This happens to be one of my all-time favorite movies from 1996, talking about Stanley Tucci's and Campbell Scott's Big Night. And Bob, I have so many connections with this film, and the fact that, my Italian heritage is the good beginning of this one. This is about two guys who come over from Italy, end up in New Jersey. Of course, that's where I was born. And they have a little restaurant on the Jersey seaside. And the difference between the restaurant owned by Stanley Tucci and Tony Shalhoub, who is fabulous in this. They are each, Tony Shalhoub is primo, and Stanley Tucci is secundo. They want to serve great cuisine. They want the best cuisine at their restaurant, as opposed to Ian Holm, who across the street is just serving up the spaghetti and meatballs and getting everybody in and getting everybody drunk. And Tony Shalhoub, who is the master chef at the one restaurant, of course, calls what Ian Holm does at his restaurant rape. Rape of great cuisine. But Bob, what I really love about this film is beyond the wonderful story of the sort of the competition between these two restaurants, one Epicurean delight, one, spaghetti and meatballs for Americans, is the idea that Ian Holm tells Stanley Tucci, hey, Louis Prima is going to come to your restaurant and is going to save them from bankruptcy, because the restaurant owned by Stanley Tucci and Tony Shalhoub is pretty much almost out of money. They're almost out of business. And a visit from Louis Prima would just send them into the stratosphere, hopefully to success. And it is Ian Holm who tells them, hey, tonight, Louis Prima is going to be at your restaurant. And therefore, they make the most amazing meal I think I've ever seen on the silver screen. Now, there's other great food movies like Water for Chocolate, Babette's Feast, Tampopo, the Japanese film about the cowboy in search of the perfect ramen. Those are all great. I think Big Night, not to make a pun, takes the cake in seeing some of the most spectacular food on screen. I don't think you can watch this movie and not get hungry. And but I'm just going to go a little bit deeper here, too. To me, Stanley Tucci and Tony Shalhoub in Big Night represent the tenuous and rather tough relationship between art and commerce. We have the artist in the kitchen who is willing to make the best food you've ever had, but we have the brother, Stanley Tucci, secundo, who has to pay the bills. He's got to make sure the restaurant stays open. And I think the deeper meaning of this film is the idea that you can't have the artistic movie unless you got the movie theater. You can't have the music concert without the concert hall, or you can't have the art gallery, or you can't display artistic works unless you've got the art gallery. So we've got this relationship between art and commerce, art and money. In fact, there's a scene in Big Night, it won't ruin anything, but Stanley Tucci and Tony Shalhoub are wrestling on the beach. It's like these two things seem to just be intertwined, and they're both different. Art and money, they're two different things. In this movie, they are enmeshed, and it's told in a very wonderfully simple story. Right now, here is a clip from Big Night. It's Stanley Tucci going into the bank, and he's finding out that his bank loan is coming to term.
Good morning. Please, sit down.
Thank you very much.
Cigarette? Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So it is completely different here than when I was before. Well, it's a beautiful renovation. Because, you know, we went through that with our restaurant when we first started.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of money.
Pain in the neck, you know. But I think it come out good, you know. Because it's simple. It's a very simple place for the family to come. Very nice, casual. You like Italian food, right?
Yes, I do, very much. I'm going to have to change the direction of this conversation right now.
Yes, I understand. Okay.
Is there someone you can borrow from back in, back home?
Well, no, because we did that already to come here, so.
I see. Do you have any saleable assets? Something to sell, like a car for money? Pay us?
Yes, I understand.
I wasn't sure you...
No. I speak English. No, I don't. My car? No. I have a car, but it's no Cadillac, you know. I need my car for the business, so.
I see.
No, but I don't know.
Your payments over the past 2 years have hardly been consistent.
Yes, I know.
I'm afraid we can't give you any more time.
What do you mean?
We can't give you any more time.
Okay, Mr. Pierce, let me just explain something to you, okay? I'll explain my situation to you, which is unusual, all right? I don't want to bother you, but, listen, my brother is, it's a difficult situation because what we try to do here is very hard.
Listen,
we
I
work
hate
very
to see
hard, we are
businesses
not lazy.
fail, okay?
But I just want you to understand.
I hate to see businesses fail, okay?
Yes, me too.
But we're a bank. We can't help people who can't help themselves. If we don't receive your payment by the end of the month, we will foreclose.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
A scene from Big Night, Stanley Tucci talking to the bank loan officer, and it seems like their restaurant is on the line. My fourth film on Take 4 tonight, if you have not seen Big Night from 1996, it is a treat. It is a wonderful film right on the surface, but as you go a little bit deeper, there's a much metaphorical thing going on here between art and commerce, and it's just very funny. It's heartbreaking, it's heartwarming, and some of the best food you'll see on screen ever. So, to recap on tonight's edition of Take 4, my 4 recommendations are Cutter's Way from 1981, The Great Army of Shadows from French director Jean-Pierre Melville from 1969, the very silly and very funny Top Secret from 1984, and Big Night from 1996. Bob?
And my 4 are Deadlier Than the Male, 1967, British Spies, and Good Looking Dames. Road Games, the 1981 Australian Hitchcock thriller, or Hitchcockian thriller. Wonderful film with Stacy Keach and Jamie Lee Curtis. Number 3, Francois Truffaut's overlooked classic Fahrenheit 451 with the wonderful Oscar Werner as Montag and Julie Christie. And last but not least, 1973's Friends of Eddie Coyle with Robert Mitchum and Peter Boyle, directed by Peter Yates, a classic American crime film unjustly shelved for many years.
Well, that about does it. We thank Andy, our projectionist, tonight, and we'll be back again next week with another edition of Take 2.